Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome once again. My name is Fernando Parra, and I have the pleasure of serving as the director of our Institute for Family Business, a comprehensive resource center that is meant to assist our family business community and a nexus for our family business community to connect with our students. As part of our mission to serve as an educational center for family businesses, we're offering this webinar to help family businesses learn how to lead the remote teams, optimizing their productivity in a distributed world with Dr. Christian A. Wandeler. We are grateful to the IFB Advisory Board, our Dean, Julie Alston Buchanan, who have worked diligently to make sure that our resources are available to our community. And I'd also like to recognize all of our community business partners, our IFB members, our legacy supporters for their invaluable contributions that make these events possible. Particularly Fred and Mitzi Reese, thank you for your invaluable support. Today, I have the honor of introducing industrial and organizational psychologist, Dr. Christian Wandeler, Fresno State Associate Professor and the founder of the Semco Institute USA. Dr. Wandeler researches human potential development at the workplace and in education. He consults organizations to be more productive, innovative, and realize their individual and collective human potential. So let me yield the floor to our good friend, Dr. Wandeler. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Dr. Parr, for this kind introduction, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here at home and to do a little, take a home field advantage. So I really look forward to spending this hour with you. And I wanted to get started with a bit of a question for you. And I'm going to post a link into the chat to a Miro board. So we're going to use a little bit of technology today. I hope, I know that maybe I've seen that some people are just working and just listening, but I hope that you guys can join me and be a little bit more active in actually taking notes and participating here. I wanted to share, I'll share my screen with you, and just a quick question. Who has used a Miro board before? Or maybe I should ask who hasn't. It's okay, it's a very simple tool. So if you click on the link, you should be able to have access to the board that you see on the screen right now. And I see that some of you all have joined me.
So that is the link on the chat room that was shared with us, Miro.com.
Yes.
Perfect.
So if you click on that link, it should open up a window, and you should see pretty much what you see on the shared screen here in Zoom. And what this is you can grab here on the bottom, you can grab a little sticky note. So I'm just showing you how to do this. You grab a little note, and when you double click on it, you can zoom in as well. When you double click on it, you should be able to write in it. And what I'd like you to do is to write your name in it, tell us which organization you're with, and what were you hoping to take away from this session today. So I'll show you here, this is my sticky note, my name, Fresno State. And then my goal is really to understand better, what are your challenges in your family business, and what might be ways that I can, kind of target this during our conversation today. So I see Haley has been successful here at creating a sticky note. Great. Norma as well, great. If there are other people, if we don't want technology to a barrier, we can also share out verbally and let us know who you are, which organization you're with, and what you'd like to take away from today. Okay, so see, there's a number of you that are for whom it's working out. See, Fernando is here. I work effective virtual teams, great. See, Abby Peters from Tokoro LLC. Just looking for new tools, and here we are. Yeah, new tool. Yep.
So where's the actual the sticky note? Where do you grab it first?
Oh yes, so the sticky note is on the bottom here. So that's where the sticky note is at.
Where it says 100%?
Yes, right here below. So you can grab any of these sticky notes down here in the stack. Let me again bring everyone to me so that you can.
Oh, so I'm looking at the. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna help you out a little bit.
Oh, I see. I couldn't see that before.
Okay.
So then
And
if you bring this blue note, then that does it. Okay, I got it. And then you click and drag it. Okay, wonderful. So you go all the way down and then you drag it upstairs.
yes, and you don't have to. You can't break anything, so feel free to.
And I'm reposting the link for those of you that joined us a little later.
Yes.
Thank you, Carl, for asking.
All right, so I see Norma wants to make the family meetings I see more productive. Oh, okay. All right, great. We'll see how we can address that. Let's see here. We have a few more that are in the process of writing it. So anyone else that would like to share just verbally what you're hoping to get out of this session?
Hi, my name is Hanova Ortiz, and I'm sorry I'm not on a computer. I have work and it blocks it, but I was hoping to get a little more knowledge and probably more guts and strength to open up my own family business and probably bookkeeping. And I know nobody can do it by themselves, and we need a team to move forward.
So you're particularly interested in how to grow your business and get more people involved and collaborate with the team?
I'm not in a business yet, but I do wish to open up my new business in bookkeeping, and I need skills to build my team in that.
Okay.
Welcome, Genova. She's also the vice president of our Family Business Owner Association. So welcome once again.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Parra.
Who else would like to share more about it?
We do have a note from Vanessa Ortega. It says, I'm not sure how to do this, but my name is Vanessa Ortega and I'm with El Cochinito Contento. I want to know tools to retain employees.
Tools to retain. Okay. Great. All right. Let me zoom in here. We have Joseph Ursula, local resource for staff development, and our challenge is how to make sure we communicate with clarity among all of us. Okay, great. So we'll definitely tap into that. I'm going back to Norma. She's writing, make the meetings more productive, engaging, and how to hold each other accountable, since with family, personal accountability can be challenging. Yes, probably some of you are nodding. Yeah, great. All right, let's dive into some of the content. Let me get Carl here as well. Looking for thoughts on expanding from a solo practitioner to a team. Okay, so we'll definitely try to tap into some of these suggestions and how to effectively work with virtual teams. Okay. Awesome. So you'll see we're not going to be too tool heavy today. So we'll share a little bit of what tools you can use, but it's more going to be focused on the way that you lead and manage in a virtual environment. So I'll talk a little bit more about that just in a bit. I'm going to shift over to our slideshow here. I hope that you can see this all right.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, all right, thank you. So I'm glad to kind of get your perspective. That helps, because I got a lot of content to share with you, and I'll try to keep it interactive, right? That's one of the things about virtual meetings too. If you have one person just talking all the time or a few person dominating conversation, usually that's not ideal for engagement, right? What my personal goal is for today is to give you a bit of a new perspective on your business. And I have some, I don't really have recipes, but I have some invitations for you to reconsider and evaluate how you can improve your business, and so that your employees are really looking forward to work every day and perform to their highest potential. And let me ask you this, if I asked you in 20 years, if you could grow from 90 to 5,000 employees, if you could grow your revenue from $4 million to $212 million, and if you could get an average rate of growth of about 47%, all while having a turnover rate of just 2%, would you sign up for this? I don't know if we have any example. I think the Ruiz Foods Company, right? You guys are quite big. I don't know if you had numbers like these.
Yeah, I think we're there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, and but typically these are astonishing numbers of growth, right? And I think that the Ruiz Foods, that you're an exemplary story of that growth, right? For others who might start out, what do you guys think? Would you want to see this growing from 90 to 5,000 employees? Right, growth is not always the goal, right?
And we see a lot of yeses on the chat room as well.
A lot of yeses. Okay, great. Oh, and Carl says something great. He says, can I install managers and remove myself from having to manage that? And Carl, my answer is yes, to a certain extent, right? Maybe other people's answer would be no. And Abby talking about sustainable growth, indeed. I want to talk to you a little bit about this company that these numbers come from today, which is the Semco Company, and this is a company originally from Brazil. And I think it's a particularly fitting story for family businesses, because the man that you see here, his name is Ricardo Semler. He inherited the company from his dad. And his dad, Frank, was an immigrant from Austria. He fled Austria in World War II because he was a Jew. He had, he fled the country, and he went to Brazil and started a small manufacturing company. And the company was doing pretty well and grew to, around 90, 100 employees. And then young Ricardo got involved when he was around 18. Ricardo was a rock musician at the time, so he was not really a huge fan of going to work and working in this corporate hierarchy that his dad had set up. And he said, you know what? Why? You guys have seen me grow up. Now I'm supposed to be your guys' boss. That just doesn't really make sense to me. And he said, I want to be more participative. And I want to, democratize this company a bit more. And so he really took these principles to the next level and became internationally known for creating one of the most innovative workplaces in the world. So at the moment, he has over 3.5 million views for a TED Talk that he talks about, which I'd be happy to share the link. He's sold over 2 million books. One of them is Maverick, and the other one is the 7-Day Weekend. And he had one of the most reprinted articles in the Harvard Business Review. And what the reason why I came across this is because when I studied, the workplace learning and workplace health, I came up with, from a psychological perspective, with theories and principles that companies should adhere to really create a healthy environment for people, where people are healthy, where they can perform well, and where they also develop an intrinsic motivation, right? So intrinsic motivation being that people do things because they really want to do them, not just because they're getting paid or because it's their job, but because they have an interest in doing them. And one of the companies that came across is the Semco Company, and I was amazed because they did what I would advocate for from a more theoretical perspective, right? They implemented that, and they came from a business side. They implemented this in a practical way and had a huge success. So some of the practices that I want to share with you today come from the Semco Company, who has done remote work back in the 80s. So I don't know how many of you remember the telex machines. Has anybody of you ever used a telex machine? And you don't have to out yourself if you have or haven't, right? But it's a machine. The early internet was the telex machine, is what I was told. So anyways, in the mid 80s, the Semco Company would send telex machines home to the apartments in Sao Paulo to people so that they could work from home, right, using these machines. So they were ahead of their times, and I want to share some of the things that they've come up with. So here's a little overview of what I've prepared for you all today. We'll talk a little bit more about COVID, right? That has been a great impact. I'm curious to learn a little bit more how you have experienced that. What were some of the learnings that you took from it? What were some of the challenges? And then I want to make the key argument today for you is that really there's a new role of management, right? The world is changing. It's changing ever faster. And some of our management practices are really, we're still dealing with the Industrial Revolution, with the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution. And I want to show you a little bit more about how we can tweak this for your benefit, and where you can really implement that in your business. And some of the elements are psychological safety. How do you create that? Then how does that impact leading remote teams? And then we'll summarize this and open up for more questions and interactions. I'd like to start with a quote that is attributed to Darwin. Right? It's not necessarily the strongest species or the most intelligent that survive, but the ones that are most responsive to change. And I think as family businesses, I think all of you know a thing or two about being responsive to change, adapting, surviving, being resilient. Right? And last year with this little virus, right, it's really put everything in place. Right, all of a sudden, we had whole countries shut down, whole economies shut down, and still now we see the repercussions of these shutdowns. Not only on the health and the integrities of some of our families, right, but also on the learnings of our students, kids, people that work from home, and economically, right, the supply chain, all that, it's all kind of out of whack. And it's going to be interesting on how we adapt. So I would like to open it up for a little conversation and doing what we call a little retrospective, right? And by the way, what I try to do is, as we spend this hour together today, I try to model some of the things that good virtual teams do. And one of them is to do regular retrospectives, right? That means we take a moment to look back and see what worked well, what didn't work so well, what can we do better? So what I'd like for us to do is to bring your attention again back to the Miro board. And I would like to create some breakout rooms here. Dr. Parr, if you could assist me with that.
Absolutely.
And the question is for you participants to spend a bit of time to think about what have you done that worked during this COVID crisis, right? As people were working remotely, what are some things that didn't work? And what are some of the challenges that you're really still dealing with? And if you could take some notes on the Miro board, right? You can designate one note keeper per room and move into this second box here. And again, you have notepads on the bottom where you can talk about, for example, here, what has worked, you know, add a few, what didn't work, and what are some of the challenges that you're working on.
How many members in each team would you like?
How many do we have total?
4 to 5.
Yeah, 4 to 5 would be good. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
And we'll give you all about 10 minutes to discuss and dive into this a little bit more.
So I've opened the actual rooms. You just have to press join.
Okay, great. And let me see here. I'll go join a room.
So right now I have you on number 2.
Number 2. All right, I'll go over there, and then we'll. Can you call us back in like starting like in 9 minutes?
9 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Certainly.
That way, it, you know, gives us about a minute lag time before we come back.
Looks like everybody's back now.
All right, great. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a great conversation. I was wondering if anybody wanted to speak up and share some of the things that they talked about. Is there anything that surprised you hearing it in conversations? We got a lot of silence here. That's okay.
We have some post-its already. You know, things that were mentioned, at least in the sessions that I joined, where you know, having flexibility with the approach of work, you know, the actual flexibility of schedule in terms of, you know, balancing your family's activities with your work activities during the whole day worked. You know, shifting timings to Zoom worked. Having someone in the team that would have the answer work, even though you knew that not everybody had the answer, you would know that someone in the team, at least someone in the team, would have an answer. The biggest challenges were to have the skill set to navigate everything from home. It was a fast awakening for a lot of folks, and it kind of put a lot of pressure on family businesses as well. You know, finding the actual tools that could help you move forward was difficult. Like what's going to be the best avenue, and trying things out for the first time. Some say serving minority students, keeping the team together were the biggest challenges. Lack of in-person events was a challenge as well. What didn't work was being isolated. What didn't work was getting clients to follow directions sometimes for new remote procedures. Those are some of the comments that were placed. And what worked was technology was our best friend. which made the workplace a little more democratic.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. That's a good overview here of what your experience was like during this pandemic. That's interesting. I want to talk a little bit more about this, right? As we talk more about leading remote teams, right? I think your experience here echoes that of a lot of people. I think what I typically hear that it served as an accelerator, right? So, you know, we were gonna do Zoom meetings maybe anyways, but instead of doing this over the next 3-4 years, right, we did it over the next 3 weeks. And one thing is that, you know, when we talk about leading remote teams, it's really the notion of this distributed world that we live in, right? This globalized world. And I think the notion of remote work, working from home, right? I think that's a thing that won't go, that's a genie that's not going to go back into the bottle, right? So when we look at how do we move forward, what's going to happen here, right? You see some companies are starting to move people back. Other companies say, hey, you can stay at home as long as you want, right? And I think that's something that every business kind of has to decide for themselves. One question is that, are we ever going to return to this morning and afternoon commute, right? This typical 9 to 5 that wasn't questioned as much, right? That's now pretty much up for debate. And what I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about is, what does this mean for control and for employee empowerment, right? How do you create a workplace that's really doing justice to this new environment? You might have heard, typically in the context of millennials, right? People want to, you know, they want something else. They expect a different workplace. I don't know that it's necessarily tied to generation, but that it's just part of the changing world in general. One thing that, you know, won't really change is psychological safety. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about this when we try to reimagine what this new world can be like. Right? If you think about being more resilient, right? All of you guys have shown tremendous resiliency during this pandemic, right? I talked to a pharma company last week where they were sharing that normally it take them 7 years to develop a vaccine, and they did that now in 1 year, right? And they said, you know, it's amazing what we were able to do, and we want to reflect and figure out how can we do that more systematically, right? Instead of going back to our old ways, how can we really keep up with that speed? One thing that I wanted to share with you is, maybe you're familiar with this already, theory X and theory Y, these foundational management theories. And if you've heard of it before, that's going to be a little bit of a repetition. If you haven't, it was a theory that was first formulated by McGregor in the late 50s. And what he essentially was saying is that if you follow a theory X management model, you assume that people dislike work, that they don't really want responsibility, that they also can't really be trusted, and that you have to motivate them, right? So hence the carrot and stick model, right? You pay them more, you give them bonuses, or you punish them, right? Maybe you write them up, or you at the worst you fire them, right? The theory Y, on the other hand, assumes that people actually enjoy work, that they want responsibility, that they're looking for that, they want to be creative, and they are creative, and that they can be trusted. And now what's interesting is that depending on which of these theories you follow, which one you believe in, right? And it's not necessarily black and white, right? But people tend to confirm what you assume, right? So as a leader, you have certain assumptions, and correspondingly, you behave in a certain way. You create an organization environment in that way, and you also get employees' behaviors that react that way. So what's really interesting is for us as an institute, what we talk about is that the management theory X is really related to a lot of hierarchy and command and control, right? If you don't trust people, you got to control them. And typically, if you look at the neuroscience perspective, there's a lot of fear involved with that, right? People are they're fear of getting punished, they're fearing of losing their jobs, or they're fear of just being reprimanded. On the other hand, if you believe in a more theory Y environment, right, you're focusing more on networked organizations, creating safe environments, creating friendships, going along with interests. And that's what we with the Semco Style Institute, what we try to do is kind of follow what Ricardo Semler did when he took over the company from his dad, right? Is to kind of flip that pyramid on its head and have much more participation. Because what he observed is that the people that participated most were the people in management positions, right? And he could have assumed that, oh, those are the people, you know, theory X is, yeah, those are people that are motivated and that's why they're there. But he went the other route and said, well, wait a minute. What if we create an environment where more people participate? Would then also their engagement go up? And so they did that and really went all the way with it. And that's something that I really want you guys to think about is in which ways can you at this point in time use the changes of the environment, right? The changes came with COVID and implement a new role for management. So when you think about what you want to have less of, because there's basically two options now when you have a remote team, right? You could still require people to show up from 9 to 5 and be that in front of the computer at 9:00, right? Take their lunch break from 12 to 12:30, and then you know, stay on the computer till 5 p.m. Or you could say, I want to be more results oriented or results focused. So that's the thing where the new role of management is more about being a coach, right? Helping others solve problems, develop their confidence, have the conversations going, and less, and this might be surprising for you, less of solving other people's problem, checking on people and intervening. But again, that requires a lot of trust, right? And a lot of letting go of leaders, right? It's really a different way of organizing and managing your business. And that involves a lot of psychological safety, which I don't want to go too much into the theories here. Maybe you've heard more recently from Amy Edmondson. She's a psychologist at Harvard that talks a lot about psychological safety, right? How safe is it for people to make mistakes, to ask questions, voice concerns, right? And what the research shows is the safer people feel to do that, the more accepted they feel, and the more included they also feel, right? They're more willing to take on challenges and also sometimes challenge the status quo in a respectful way. I want to be mindful of our time here and go a little bit quickly over this, but the assumption here is that when you have an increase in psychological safety, you can also expect an increase in performance, right? But first of all is how, when you have a remote team and a distributed team, how can you create that psychological safety that then will allow people to perform in a better way? And I want to give you guys some practical examples. And I'm going to quickly go over this. I want to get to the next point here. We talk a lot about democracy, right? So how can you create a more democratic environment? I've seen some people have mentioned this, right? Now that people are at home, right? You kind of have less control over them in a typical way, right? But the question is like, how can you give people actually more control? And the way is to really change the dynamics and look for a more self-managed environment. Right? We want the people to be more involved and actually tap into their wisdom. And in the group that I was part of, Tony was sharing a great example of how the collective wisdom really helped their organization out to deal with the crisis. Tony, did you want to say something about that? Maybe share an example how this helped you guys? I'll move along, but that was really insightful, right? To say, hey, we have a collective wisdom. How can we tap into this, right? A more democratic environment helps with facilitating that. And when I say, you know, democratic environment, I don't mean that there's always voting going on, but there's really systematic ways of distributing the decision making and have the people that are at the forefront, that they are empowered to actually make the decisions, right? That's one of the remote teams, right? If people have to check in with you all the time, then you're slowing everything down. One of the things though, it is that you have the trust that you need to do that, right? Typically the traditional workplace, again, at theory X type of environment, you know, you have a lot of layers, you have a lot of bureaucracy, right? And that really doesn't benefit the trust and transparency. And what do people typically react? How do people typically react? They become robots, right? They're acting on instruction and they lose the ability to think for themselves, right? What we try to do is to really foster common sense, right? So that people think along, have sound judgment, and can take action when needed and when they are actually, you know, that when they have a decision to make, that they can take that decision. I want to go forward to this here. This is a really crucial piece as well, the aligned self-interest, right? Because sometimes now we have, when you have people at home, right, there's a whole array of differences, different stimuli that for focusing on, right? Let's say you have, I myself, I have 3 kids at home, right? Now I got to juggle the time between work and the time between paying attention to my kids. And how do you do that in a organization, right? And if you're able to make a lot more decisions yourself, you have what we call the active engagement, right? And that's what you really want to in a high performance organization, that the goals of the employee are aligned with the goals of the company. And for that to emerge, we'll have 2 different very practical tools for you guys. I want to take a quick break. Ask, are there any questions or comments?
So are we advocating that theory Y is a better approach to governance for family businesses?
I would advocate yes. So there is definitely theory X family businesses that have been successful in the past, right? They have been, but it's the old military style one, right? Imagine it's a pyramid. there's a lot of times family businesses that were founded by somebody, right? Maybe there's the family in charge, the family leads, and typically you have the good old paternalism, right, or maternalism, right? And at the end of the day, you can get results, right? You can get even very successful results, but you're not really treating the people as full adults. And let me explain to you guys a little bit more about that here. It really has to do with the trusts. And one key piece of building trust is treating adults as adults. We have two more, but I'm going to skip over that for now. One is unfiltered transparency, right? That we trust you with numbers, with information. And the last one is reducing a power distance, right? So that people feel more equal. That's another thing to really support the trust. I'm going to skip forward. We have a lot of practices that come from Semco where we share exactly how Semco did it. But to echo your question here, Fernando, right? This is a transactional analysis model and how people react in a organization, right? So we could either say, hey, I'm going to be a parent and I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to treat you like a child. And that kind of goes along to the theory X and theory Y hypothesis about people confirm what you expect, right? So if you as a parent treat your employees like a child, well, before you know it, they behave like a child, right? At the same time, you know, you have this dynamic, right? Children look up to parents, and you know, while that is appropriate with parent-child relationships, where you really get a lot of power is when you treat adults to adults, right? We say, hey, you're making all these decisions when you walk out of the business. That, you know, you go home, you guys are buying cars, you're buying mortgages, etc., right? But for whatever reason, I might not trust you with similar decisions in the business environment. And we want to really advocate for having a more adult-to-adult conversation, trust people that they can make sound judgments. The other one that is really critical here is boundaries, and that came up in the conversation I was part of. Is how do you create boundaries where people now, when they're not, you know, I think a lot of times in a typical organization, we have the illusion of control. People come to the office every day, they sit in their seat, they're there, you know, you feel like, hey, something's going on, right? However, when we manage in a more self-managed way, right, when we focus more on the team's dynamics, we can actually create much more specific boundaries for their actions, right? So instead of telling you a boundary, hey, you got to be here from 8 to 5 and you know, report to so-and-so, right? We say, hey, you're a self-managed team. We are going to define for you results that we would like you to achieve, right? We're going to define certain quality metrics. We're going to pull out regulation and legislation procedures that you have to follow, right? Let's say in a you know, for example, in a food manufacturing environment or in any type of environment, you have some rules and laws you just have to follow, right? You got some quality standards that are maybe more internal or imposed by your customer. But then we have results that we want to achieve, and then the behavior values, that is huge as well, right? So to think about how do we want to treat each other, right? To what we also call a social contract. So if you imagine now you have these boundaries of action that really guide a team and provide it with much more structure, where now it doesn't really matter if they're coming in every day to the same location, or if they're more remotely at work, you know, even not even at the same time zone, right? Different time zone, maybe even different countries. But these boundaries really help to guide their actions. Let me see. I'm going to show you guys an example, and this is an example of a. In the interest of time, I'm going to move forward to a bank. Okay, so this bank was a typical bank, right? If you imagine, pretty hierarchical, with a lot of silos, and there were over 3,500 people in this division. Right? And I said, hey, you know what? We want to restructure this, and we want to improve our customer satisfaction. That really is something that we want to work on. And so the Semco Style Institute in Holland helped them and said, you know what? We're going to define the outcomes, the goals, but then how you want to achieve that, we leave that up to you as a team. Okay? So let me share this here with you. So for example, the goal here was, first of all, they wanted to reduce the KPIs. I don't know how many KPIs you guys have typically, but typically we have too many. So these guys here, this bank had 32 KPIs that they asked people to follow. And typically it will be the manager that would have these numbers and use that to manage the team. Now they moved away and said, you know what, let's make this a little bit simpler. We'll just track 7. But we share those numbers directly with the team so that the team gets that feedback right away.
Let me just interrupt real quick. I'm just launching this poll because I know that a couple of you said that you had to disconnect at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
But the session's still scheduled to go past that time. So I'm hoping that I can get some of your responses without interrupting the session, which I just did. So please.
No worries. No worries.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you.
So here you see, right, they defined the goal, but then how they wanted to do it was on them. But we had requirements that they had to meet were, you know, first aid, client tracking, client filing, training requirements. That was basically imposed on the team. That was part of those boundaries. Then basic requirements was clothing, minimum opening, and office layout, and up-to-date visuals, right? So, right, if you imagine like dress codes, right, that's a given, right? They had minimum opening times, but the teams were able to say, when do we want to open the branch up and when do we want to close it, right? So in this particular example, there's some branches that had very slow traffic on Monday mornings from 8 to 10. So why would we open then? Let's just open at 10. We'll save 2 hours of low productive time, you know, and we'll add those hours some other time, right? Maybe we'll stay open at night a little bit longer at one point in time. So, so that's one thing, right? So these boundaries. Another one is how you set the goals. So again, when you set goals, right? Typically in a hierarchical organization, you got this top down, right? They set goals and they tell, you know, top management says the middle management, hey, these are our goals. Middle management passes it on to supervisors. Supervisors pass it on down the line. Other ways would be to go bottom up, right? Or go both directions. And then also look at, hey, there's different areas, there's different groups in an organization that can set goals. What we would want to advocate is that when you have these remote teams, right, now there's a lot more co-creation involved as well, right? Where you have the individual self-interest matched with the shared interest of the company or the team, and you look at the co-creation of goals so that you have this alignment between people, right? So this flexibility that comes with remote work, we want to tap into that by, first of all, you know, co-creating goals, but then also co-creating boundaries so that there's some flexibility and win-win situations. And with this, I'm coming to the end of the presentation. And what I'd like for us to talk about is, what do you guys think? I had previewed a breakout group, but it might be almost more interesting if we stay together in the plenary here and talk about, now that you heard this, how do you see your new role as a leader in this remote environment? Maybe how do you see your organization moving forward? And is there anything that you heard today that will, inspire you to change something or start doing something?
I'm gonna volunteer first by saying that one of the biggest challenges you have in adopting such a switch in paradigms is when you know that there are some team members whose forte is not necessarily to be in the decision room for every single action, right? Where the relevancy may not necessarily be productive, or you may have not found the right place, the right scope for that individual to serve in. And so that's always a challenge when you bring a decision as to, well, when should we meet? And I like to meet at 5 o'clock in the morning as opposed to 8 o'clock at night for some individuals. And so that can always be the challenge. So I guess that's where boundaries come in, and setting those boundaries, those social contracts that work for teams can help that. But am I correct that assuming that is correct?
Yes, I mean, what I feel is really key in this approach is that we connect with people where they're at, right? So if some people are less comfortable about making certain decisions, we also define which decisions can you make and which decisions should you delegate, right? So typically, I think, particularly family businesses, at times you get you get trapped in the management trap, right? Maybe you've been delegating to others in the past, and you might have had some bad experiences, right? Where things fell through the cracks, and now all of a sudden you're like, dang, people seem like they don't care, they screw it up, and now you feel like, oh, I got to check more, right? I got to stay more in control. But now what you're causing is you're causing yourself more workload, right? And you tend to become the bottleneck, right? Whereas if you are able to set up a team where you can delegate a lot of the responsibilities, again, not just overwhelming people, but where people are ready and trained to take on the responsibilities, then you're going to make your life a lot easier, right? And you want to avoid that management trap. So kind of to the gentleman's point at the beginning of the session, right? If you want to grow from 90 employees to 5,000, you're not going to be able to micromanage, right? You got to be able to make different decisions in different stages of the business development.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Abby saying, keep in mind acting like an adult and acting with other adults in the workplace. I think, yes, if you can take that away. And Hanova, you're bringing up a great point, right? That people that just are working for a paycheck, right? That they can also shift and become more intrinsically motivated. And that's, I really strongly believe in that. There's always a small portion of people that are going to be really hard to motivate, but you might not necessarily want those people as part of your company, right? If you can manage to really attract people that are more in line with the theory why, that's definitely a positive. Carolyn writes, very well presented. Well, thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Christian, a couple of participants asked if we could share the slides with them as well. Some had to
Absolutely.
excuse themselves before they had to disconnect for the 4 o'clock engagements they had somewhere else, unfortunately. But we can certainly share the slides and also a recording of this presentation after we do the editing and the production, and I make myself a little skinnier, which is going to be taking me a couple of days to do so.
I love it.
Just a joke, just a joke. But everybody, thank you so much for coming in today. Do you have any more questions for our presenter today? Okay, it doesn't seem like we have any other questions. So I'd like to invite you all to become a member of the IFB. Your membership makes these types of presentations available to the public. So thank you so much for your support. If you take a picture of this QR code, or if you zoom in and follow that bit.ly link, I can type it in on the session as well. bit.ly IFB member, and that is an HTTPS. Oops, sorry guys. There's the link if you're interested in becoming a member. So once again, thank you for joining us today. I hope you found value in the strategy that was presented by Dr. Wandeler today. It's certainly a big topic, and there is a lot to learn from this theoretical perspective. And so feel free to connect with us for more information. I will be sending an email with the link to our YouTube channel of the recording within the next few days. Also attached, I will have the information on the slides that we didn't get to cover, and then information on how to reach Dr. Wandeler for subsequent advice or guidance in your family business. Again, we're here to serve you. Thank you once again for attending today, and we hope to see you in our next family business seminar. Dr. Wandeler, thank you so much. It's been very informative.
You're welcome. Thank you all for participating. I hope you got something out of it, and I wish you all the best moving forward here. I know it. I can only assume that it hasn't been easy for all of you, and I wish you all the best. And I'm here to support you guys if you have any questions or comments. I believe we'll be doing another seminar in the fall, so we'll look forward to this. I think particularly for family businesses that are looking at transitioning, between generations. And for example, right now I'm working with a company in LA who the son is taking over from the dad. The dad's founded a company, he's working 80 hours a week, and says, hey, the son says, I don't want to do this like my dad, but he wants to be a good family player and team player and keep the family legacy going. But he's looking for a way to do this in a less taxing way and being more participative, right? A little bit more democratic. And I think this is a good way of doing this, and to also deal with this new reality of having people, work remotely and coordinate and give them more freedom so that they can contribute in the best ways possible.
We certainly look forward to hearing you in August or September, if I can recall, but I'll certainly keep you guys posted and send you an invitation shortly, as well as an invitation to our summer boot camp. That will be 3 days of seminars, and then in the fall, another subsequent seminars as well that will come along to be invited soon. Thank you, Mr. President Lai Lasher, who is here today as well from the Family Business Student Association. Thank you again for your service and for getting us to where we are today.
No problem. Thank you. Sorry, I was on the phone today, so no video.
No problem. No problem. Dr. Wandeler, thank you. It's been a pleasure. So I'll disconnect at this time.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.